All right, monsters, this is lesson 2 for the days that I'll be gone. Last time we did adding and subtracting polynomials. Hopefully that homework went well and the key didn't have mistakes and you were able to get that all figured out. Today we are going to talk about multiplying polynomials and multiplying two binomials. I'm actually kind of sad that I'm not there in person to do this lesson with you because, one, this is one of my favorite things to teach, but also this is one of the most important things that you guys learn all year. In fact, I would argue that this side, this multiplying binomial side, will be one of the most important things that you learn throughout all of your math education. So that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right in. I am going to highlight this top box with the colors that I like. So I'm going to do this guy. Try to do them kind of quick. And then we're going to fill in our blanks on this guy. So our blanks for this set of notes, there's actually not very many, is to multiply. So your first blank is the word multiply. To multiply, use the distributive property. To multiply polynomials, use the distributive property. So that's good news. It's nice to hear that this is going to be something that you guys have seen and done before. The thing that might be the most different about it is the fact that we are dealing with a lot of variables this time. So our first example is kind of a basic example. We are going to multiply a binomial by a monomial. So we are going to multiply a binomial by a monomial. So your monomial's right here on the outside, your binomial is inside of the parentheses. Just gonna find my marker and highlight that a bit for myself. And then we'll jump right in on this guy. So what I have found as I teach this each year is that it is easy for you guys to do the number multiplication. So for instance, when we multiply in this negative 5y squared to the negative 3y cubed, I have found that it's fairly easy for you guys to get the negative 5 times negative 3, right? And that's going to be a positive 15. And on these ones, I like to just like write it, well, actually maybe I'll write it out to the side. So our first one is going to be positive 15. But then when I write out the variables, I'm going to do something a little bit weird. And the weird thing is I'm going to write them as their exponential expressions. So what I mean by that is you have a y squared and a y cubed. So just to make sure that everything is as clear as it can be, this y squared is now right here in that problem. Then next up, I have a negative 5 times a positive 8, so that's going to go to negative 40. And then this one doesn't have a variable, so we're just going to do y squared here. And once again, I'm going to highlight that that is the variable set that I multiplied in. So now we just simplify down the expression. So here I say, well, this is going to simplify to 15. You just count up how many y's you have. You have 2 here and 3 here, so 15y to the 5th minus 40y squared. That's your final answer. Notice that I did really good this time to do equal signs, so I'm just going to box that guy up. Okay, next up, we're going to multiply a trinomial this time by a monomial. So I'm going to pull out just a little bit, zoom out, so that you can see that on all four of these examples, all we're doing is multiplying a monomial on the outside of another polynomial. So here it was a monomial and a binomial. Here we're doing a monomial and a trinomial. We're starting with these guys because they're a little bit more straightforward to begin with. So these blanks are, we're multiplying a trinomial by a monomial. I'm going to underline that one just like I did the last one. Oh, sorry, I will make it so that you can see that a little bit better. So on this one you get 3 examples. I only did 1 example of the monomial binomial because it's pretty much the same process for these last 3, except for you're multiplying into 3 terms instead of 2 terms. So I'm going to get you started on the first one. It may be helpful to note that what this really is a negative 1x cubed. So it might be helpful for you to just try to write that in there so that when you go to do your multiply, you don't lose track of the fact that you're multiplying each of these terms not only by x cubed, but by a negative 1. So if you multiply 9 by negative 1, you get negative 9. And then I'm going to write my variables out in that weird way so that I can make sure that I keep track of all of them. I have an x cubed and an x to the 4th. Next up, if I do negative 1 times negative 2, this time I'm going to get a positive 2. I have an x cubed and then another x cubed. And then last up, I have a negative 1, so I got to make sure I carry through all those arrows. And a positive 7, that's going to go to negative 7, but we can't forget that x cubed. So I'm going to go back through just like I did on number 1, and I'm going to highlight that you had an x cubed on the outside. So you have to make sure that after you multiply, you have an x cubed on each term. Last step for me is that I like to simplify then my variables. So this guy is going to go to negative 9 x to the 7th plus 2 x to the 6th. And I guess I should be more specific here. I got 7 because I did these 3 x's and those 4 x's, so I added them. And then here I got 6 because I did these 3 and these 3, so I added those guys. Then my last term, we don't change anything about him. He's just minus 7x cubed. So that's my final answer on this guy. I can box him up. And as I'm boxing him up, I'm just verifying that he's in standard form. He is. Thank heavens that he is, so that I don't have to go through and erase the box that I just made to rearrange them. So at this point, I think that I'd like you guys to try 3 on your own. One thing that I want to make a note of before I have you pause to do that is, I know that eventually you're not going to need to do this part where you write out the variables. So where you write out x cubed and x to the 4th or x cubed and x cubed. But at least on your note sheet, I'd like you to continue doing that so that we both know and are really clear about how we combine or multiply the variables. Okay, so now pause. Try number 3, take your time, really make sure you're keeping track of all those terms, and then we'll check back in when you're done. Okay, let's check in. So on this first one, I'm going to do negative, well first let me stop and say, notice I put my equal sign. So I'm going to do negative 2 times positive 5, that's going to go to negative 10, and I'm going to do an x and an x squared. So where I got that x from is this x here is now that one there. Next up, I get a -2 times a -4. That's going to go to +8. I have an x and an x. So just to distinguish them, this one is the one that I multiplied in. And then my last term is going to be -2 times +13. That's going to go to -26. And then I have the x on that term as well. So these x's that I'm highlighting in yellow, those are the ones that I distributed in. So last up is we just make sure we simplify the variables. So this one's going to go to -10 x cubed. You have 1x here and 2x's there, so x cubed, plus 8x squared. So you have 1x there and 1x there. And then lastly, you just keep the 26x. Before I box this time, I'm just going to verify that I'm in standard form. I am. My exponents go 3, 2, and 1, so I feel good about boxing him up as my final answer. Uh-oh, had to make that guy higher. Okay, last up is just another monomial times a trinomial. So I'm going to have you guys give this one a go on your own as well. Even if you feel unsure, resist the temptation to unpause and just watch me do it. Really try your best to figure it out on your own. Just make sure that you're using pencils so that if you need to fix anything, you can. Okay, pause now. And we're back. I followed my own instructions on that one and paused the video, which I usually just let it run through. So let's check this guy. We are going to do 10 times -6. That's going to give us -60. I have an a and an a to the 5th. Then I have a +10 times a +2. That's going to go to 20. I have an a and another a. And then last up, I have a +10 times a -7. That's going to be a -70 and just that one a. So once again, I'm going to highlight this a is now reflected in the product here, here, and here. So last step, as usual, is just to simplify up those variables. So we're going to do -60 a to the 6th plus 20 a squared minus 70a. So I'm really hoping at this point, as we box up this answer, that we're feeling pretty good about multiplying a monomial and a polynomial. So this is a monomial and then either a trinomial or a binomial, or sometimes you could even get 4 terms, so a polynomial, or 5 terms. But this is the basics. This is going to get taped in when you're ready. This gets taped into page, I believe it's 60. Let me just pull up my notebook. So we did adding and subtracting last time, and that went on page 48. We're leaving 49 blank because I'm going to have you add something to it. So this guy now goes on 50. When you are ready, tape him into 50, pause the video, and then get ready to start multiplying binomials. All right, monsters, now we're on to probably one of the most important things we're going to learn this year, and it is multiplying binomials. So I have a feeling that a lot of you guys will have seen this before, but before we move on to our next unit, we need to make sure that we are really, really good at multiplying two binomials together. So I am going to highlight my top part of my notes, like I normally do. Then I'll fill in blanks and we'll go from there. So what color? Okay, this color. Okay, so here we go. Let's fill in our blanks. Our first blank is to multiply two binomials, so it's always going to be 2 to multiply 2 binomials. So all of these, even this one that looks slightly different, but all of these are 2 binomials. We need to double distribute. So hopefully you've heard that expression before. You're going to hear it a lot this year. It is double distribute. Double distribute. So hopefully that name is going to give you some kind of indication about what's going to happen here. We are going to use the distributive property again. It's just going to look slightly different as we move through the problems. So when you have one number on the outside of a parenthesis, so I'm just going to write that down real quick. When you see something like this, I feel confident that if I said, okay, what do you guys do in this problem? You guys would say you distribute. You take that 3 and multiply it by the 5x. You take the 3 and multiply it by the 2. That's exactly what we just did on the last page, multiplying a monomial and a polynomial. So here's what happens when instead of just having one person on the outside of the parenthesis, you have 2. So let's say that 3 stays, but his friend, let's go with 10x, is with him. So they're both outside of the parenthesis now. So what happens is, not only do we do 3 and 5x and 3 and 2, but we also need to do 10x and 5x and 10x and 2. It's almost like on this guy, he's standing outside, he's knocking on the door because he wants to come in and hang out with 5x and 2. We know that 5x and 2 are together because they're in the same parentheses, they're in the same room. Well, here's 3 and 10x, they're together, we know that they're together because of the parentheses, but they want to hang out with 5x and 2. 3's not just going to go alone because these two are together, so you have to not only do 3, but 10x. So let's see what that looks like in our actual double distributing examples. So I always draw 2 sets of arrows. In every single problem that I do, I always make sure that I have 2 sets of arrows happening. So my first set of arrows is going to be on the 7x. I'm going to take this 7x and I'm going to multiply him by 3x. And then I'm going to multiply him by 6. So what that's going to look like is we're going to say equal sign. 7x times 3x is going to go to 21. And then just to kind of follow along with the last example, I'm going to write this first one as xx. You have an x here and an x here, so that's going to go to xx. Then your next one is 7x times 6, so that's going to go to 42x. Then underneath, I'm going to do this -4. Now make sure that you include the negative with the 4. So underneath, I'm going to do -4 times 3x and -4 times 6. So I do 2 over the top and 2 under the bottom so that I can make sure that my work looks clean and that I'm keeping track of all of the terms. So now I'm going to do those next 2. So -4 times 3x is going to be a -12x. And then -4 times 6 is going to be a +6. So at this point, I'm just going to do a smidge of highlighting. You got these 2 terms from the blue arrows over the top, and you got these 2 terms from the green arrows under the bottom. So now we simplify this guy down. this 21xx should be changed to 21x squared. And then I'm really hoping that you guys recognized that 42x and 12x are now like terms. Those two terms in the middle are like terms. So if we do a positive 42 and a negative 12, that's going to go to a plus 30x. And then lastly, we bring down our plus 6. So it turns out when we multiplied these two binomials together, we ended up getting 21x squared plus 30x plus 6. I think I'm going to underline him. I'm not sure if I'm going to box him. I'll start by underlining him, and maybe I'll come back and box it if I feel like that'll look nice. Also notice that I got equal signs on both of my products, so let's make sure that we try really hard throughout this worksheet to keep track of those. All right, next up is number 2. It is the exact same process as number 1. So I'm going to take my marker, and I'm using different colors to hopefully help you guys see where you are getting each term from. So I'm going to draw an arrow from the 2x to the x, and then I'm going to draw another set from the 2x to the 5. So when I go to multiply this guy out, I'm going to get 2x times x, and then I'm going to get 2 times 5 is 10, and then just keep the x. Then underneath, I'm going to get 4 times x and 4 times 5. So when I do that guy, I get plus 4 times x is 4x, and then 4 times 5 is a plus 20. So just like in the last problem, we're going to simplify things down. So 2xx goes to 2x squared. Once again, your middle terms are now like terms. You have a positive 10x, you have a positive 4x. That guy's going to go to 14x, and then you just keep your plus 20 on the end. I'm going to underline that guy just like I did the last one. And then we're going to move on to the next one. I'm going to do this one with you because he's slightly different, and then I'm going to have you try the next two on your own. So the thing that's different about this guy is if you notice the first term in the binomial, he doesn't have a coefficient. This is the first one that we're seeing where it's an x here and an x here, no number in front. It doesn't really change what we're going to do though. So I'm going to draw an arrow from the first x to the second, and an arrow from the x to the minus 3. So what that looks like when we multiply it out, and remember I'm showing a ton of work, so at this point if you know that x times x is x squared, you could probably write that, but because I'm trying to be as clear and as explicit as possible, I'm going to write that as x times x. Then next up we have x times negative 3. Make sure that you keep that negative symbol, and that goes to negative 3x. Now I do my underneath arrows, so I'm going to do a negative 6 times x and a negative 6 times negative 3. Make sure that you guys are including those negatives with the numbers that they are in front of. So this next set is going to be negative 6x. And then last, we're going to get negative 6 times negative 3. That's going to be positive 18. So I didn't do it in the last one, but I want to do it in this one. These two terms you got from the underneath arrows, and these two terms you got from the over arrows. So just make sure that you know each time you multiply two binomials, your two arrows over the top will produce two terms, and your two arrows underneath the bottom will produce two terms. So our last step in this one, just like the other one, is we are going to simplify our expression. So x times x is not 2x. It is x squared. So we're going to say x squared Then we have a -3 and a -6. Those guys are going to go to -9. And then last up, we keep the plus 18. So our final answer on this guy is x squared minus 9x plus 18. Okay, I'm going to have you guys at this point pause the video, and I want you to try number 4 without me. If you need a little bit of guidance, hop back up to number 2. Number 2 is a good example of this one, but if not, let's have you just pause, really multiply out and combine like terms on number 4, and then we'll check in. All right, guys, let's see how you did. So on this one, I'm going to have 2 arrows going over the top. So on this one, I'm going to get x times 4x is 4x squared. Then underneath, oh, sorry, I forgot to do my next one. X times -2x is going to go to minus 2x. Now underneath, I do 8. Positive 8 times positive 4, that's going to be plus 32x. And then underneath this guy, positive 8 times -2 is going to be negative 16. So on this one, because I started out with an x squared, I didn't do the xx, xx, xx like I did in the other examples. I don't need to simplify that first one. But I do still have a set of like terms in the middle on this guy. So I'm going to get a -2 plus a 32. So that guy is going to go to positive 30x. And then lastly, minus 16. How'd you guys do? Hopefully you were able to get to 4x squared plus 30x minus 16. Okay, I think you can also do this next one on your own, so let's have you guys give that one a try. Go ahead and pause the video, and when you're done, unpause, and let's see how you did. Okay, on this guy, we're going to get 3x times 3x. That guy's going to go to 9x squared. Then we get 3x times -5. That's going to be a -15x. Underneath, we get 5 times 3x. That's plus 15x. And then last up, we get positive 5 times a -5. So that guy is -25. So now, when I go to simplify my like terms, hopefully what you guys noticed is that this -15x and this positive 15x cancel each other out. And this guy turns into 9x squared minus 25. So he's the first set that we've seen that is not a trinomial as the answer. It's a binomial as the answer because the 2 middle terms right here ended up canceling out. So I'm going to go ahead and box him up. I think I'm going to box them. For some reason, this underline just isn't looking that awesome to me. So maybe I'll go through and box these and see how I like it. Well, I think that just made it look even messier, but whatevs. Okay, so the number 6 is special. So this, remember way back when we were doing exponential rules and I told you, you absolutely cannot change this to 4x squared plus 9. And you guys had some questions about that, and I told you it's because that addition sign is there. You can't just put that 2 on the 2 squared and that 2 on the 3. So the reason that is because if you expand this guy out, what you're truly multiplying, and I'm going to have to move him down a little bit because I write so big, what you're truly multiplying is 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 3. So you take that exponent of 2 and you expand this binomial out into 2 binomials. And now, in order to simplify this, you have to do the 2 arrows over and the 2 arrows under. So once again, I want you to pause the video. I want you to try this guy on your own, and then let's check in when you're done. Okay, so for my first term, I get 4x squared. My second term is going to be 6x. My third term is 6x. And my last term is a plus 9. These two 6x's in the middle combine, so they go to 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. So your final answer on this guy is 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. Oh, sorry. Next time I need to make sure you can actually see my screen. Sorry about that. Okay, last up, very last up in these is 2 binomials that are slightly different. The only thing that's different about them is they have an x squared instead of an x in the beginning. So I actually want you guys to try this one without me. So give your Chromebook a pause, really try to work your way through this one, and then come back when you're ready to check in. Okay, let's see how this guy turns out. So I do my arrows over. I'm going to actually do this one the long way like we started with. So this guy is going to turn into 3x squared times x squared. Then I do another arrow over. 3x squared times negative 4 is going to go to negative 12x squared. Under, I'm going to get 3 times x squared, which is a plus 3x squared. Under 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. So now simplifying, I get 3x to the 4th. I combine these two, a negative 12x squared and a positive 3x squared. That's going to go to minus 9x squared and then minus 12. So your final answer on this guy is 3x to the 4th minus 9x squared minus 12. And that's your double distributing. On your practice that you have for this lesson, I think I gave you 20 double distributing problems because this concept is so super duper important to your success in this class, but in math in general. When you are ready, you are going to tape this guy into page 51. I can't believe that we're on 51, guys. That's crazy to me. So this is going to go in 51. So if you're taping this guy in now, let's have you pause the Chromebook so that you can get it all taped in and you don't have to worry about me talking over you. And then play again when you're ready for me to explain homework a little bit and then sign off. So pause now, tape in, and then see you in a second. Okay, this guy, and by this guy I mean the homework for this guy, is longer than the last one. He's 30 questions long. And like I said, 20 of them are the double distributing. So one thing to note is that you have those weird ones on the back. You have one for 16 and one for 23. Just make sure that you know that you do have an example of that in your notebook. We only did one of these as an example. It was this guy, number 6. So I actually may want to, now that I'm looking at him, highlight that guy so I know that he's going to be one that I need to be on the lookout for when I do my homework. The other thing is, once you get this done, because I think a fair amount of you will get it done, or if it's getting close to the end of the period, I want you to get the key from the sub. So hopefully he doesn't give this to you until you guys show him that you're done or that it's getting toward the end of the period. I have given you the answers to the odd problems on this homework that I just showed you. Now, the same thing applies as last time. You're going to get out of this what you put in, so you'll get the most benefit out of this if you really try the problems first, and then you get the key and match up the answers. They are in order, so you don't have to search around for them. They're numbered 1 through 29. They're all the odd ones. I could have made a typo, so just be on the lookout for that. If you and your neighbor both are getting a different answer than me, then I'm probably wrong. So I would use the rest of the period to work on this. Get the key if you finish. If it's getting toward the end of the period and you're not finished yet, go ask the sub to give you a key. And then lastly, make sure that you put your Chromebook away nicely, that you charge it so that the people coming in after you can actually have access to the videos. And yeah, I think that that's it for the day. Day 2 done. The next time we have school, you'll see me. I hope you guys have a great fall break. Be safe. Love you guys. Miss you guys. And I'll hopefully see you soon.